Worship the Creator only. This is the first commandment in the Judeo-Christian tradition. It comes first, not just for fun. Even Jesus himself says this is the most important one. So, on face value, you look at all of the commandments and you might be wondering, well, how come this is more important than everything else? And there's multiple reasons for this. The first thing is it's our connection to the truth. So the truth is God exists and God revealed himself to mankind over time through the story that comes from the Judeo-Christian tradition. So if you're not going to acknowledge this, then you're stuck already in the beginning of a delusional loop where you're just astray from the truth, since this is in fact the case that God does exist. Second reason why it's super important to understand this commandment properly is God's not saying like adore me only because I'm the best. That's not the point. The point is you have to give proper recognition to the fact that there is only one creator who is behind the existence of the universe and the existence of all the souls within that universe, and that's the creator God. So when we talk to humanists, you look at the Marvel movies, the comics, they view they call gods like Zeus throwing a lightning, or you have like these cults that worship different pagan gods, like because they're very strong, they will help them in battle, stuff like this, and they have multiple gods. Well, I mean, those gods, what are they? They're powerful, yeah, okay. So the Nazis were powerful, they're gods. Like, is that the kind of logic where you're gonna worship, adore, honor, revere people with a lot of power? Like, is that the name of the game? Not in the Judeo-Christian way. It is not. Definitely not. In fact, one of the big problems for early Christians was that they refused to recognize the emperor of Rome as being a god, which was mandated by law there. So that caused a lot of issues. It made them into criminals. And they said they could not, in good conscience, do that because he didn't create anything. Like, he didn't create the universe. He's not behind anything. He's just a human being like any other. And so, what do we mean by the term worship? Like, what is it? Like, you fall on your knees and you adore God blindly, emotionally. A lot of people do that, I think, but that may not be what I understand from it. So let's take a closer look at the meaning of that word and how it makes sense in the Judeo-Christian context for us as believers to analyze this commandment and be able to kind of faithfully obey it and respect it. Because let's remember, God says, those who love me are those who respect my commandments, and this is the most important commandment. So how do we worship God? Like, what is worshiping? And I don't think it's some kind of blank statement, blank check that you're gonna love God because that's how it is. No, it's because the creator of everything, we owe it to the creator, the fact that we have this chance here to exist, to be free-willed sentient beings, and have this space-time bubble universe on which we can kind of experience things, interact, find meaning, purpose, experience love with others, and grow from this and learn to tame the environment and build it into our own, build a civilization around it, create wealth, open up. Any dream can be turned into a manifest reality with the current rules that we've been given. So in that context, worshiping is more like a deep honors, a deep sense of honoring that gift that we have from the Creator, and that's the sense of humility also, that we are not creators in that sense. Like, we can't turn around and create an entire universe and free will sentient souls. We just can't, and there's that elevation in importance that the creator has, even though he is a peer like us in terms of having his own sentience and free will. And you got to respect that omnipotent, omniscient power that we simply do not have by virtue of being finite beings inside that playground universe that he created for us to exist and experience. So yeah, so there's also a sense of thankfulness associated with worshiping, giving thanks, thanksgiving. That's part of honoring God and honoring the first commandment. Canada and the USA are very good at doing thanksgiving. And I believe that's also part of the blessing that we get from that, is that when you obey God's commandments, you're showered with the blessings because your hearts are turned towards God, you're connected to God. And going forward and more fully into that sense of worshiping as a sign of respect, it's also interesting to acknowledge that all life, the very life force that allows souls to exist, is basically light that emanates from the source, that emanates from God the Father. So that fuels us, every single individual. And when we're in denial of this fact, we're kind of cutting ourselves off from that flow. Uh, and that's really a dissociative action from the intent behind our existence. It's like saying, well, I'm having a spring, and you cut the flow of water from the nearby river. Everything's going to dry up and die. It's the same thing. So when we refuse to acknowledge God, or when we acknowledge false gods, like when we deify beings of extreme power just because they're powerful and they can allow us to get wealth and girls and whatever else we might fancy, that's a very lesser, distorted, uh, barbaric representation of what it means to worship anything. And one of the worst forms of worship is the ones that we see humanists and get involved with. It's the worship of humanity as being gods, basically. We see it in China. They're playing with the viruses, and it leaks, and it creates that disaster. So you don't want to have that false sense of delusional thinking where, oh no, there's no God except man, except the humans. We're the ultimate top animal in the food chain. That's the very humanist perspective on things. That's extremely wrong. That's extremely going against the first commandment. So God, in his wisdom, wanted us to be reminded that it's completely essential for us to first of all acknowledge the source of all things. And so they're not, and if God was not the creator of everything and the entire universe and all the souls within it, then that's not God. That's not somebody worthy of being worshipped. So do not worship any other gods before me. I am the creator, your God. This is the first commandment. This is the most important commandment. This is how you begin your journey towards being a gentle person, a gentleman, a gentlewoman. You can't deny this. So unless you're willing to say, you know what, I've always thought that there's no God, but I don't really have proof of whether there is or not. And if you're on the off chance that God exists, what are you going to do? You're going, oh, I'm sorry, I was a douchebag all my life, but I thought you didn't exist. That's not really going to work. I think people, if they're reasonable enough, they're going to consider that, yeah, there's got to be a reason behind everything, the big why at the beginning of everything. It's not just like there was hydrogen, and if you give it enough time, it's going to turn into humans. That's not how existence operates, really. There has to be purpose, intent, sentience, and that means that there is also a purpose for mankind, a destiny for mankind, an opportunity for us to be brought back onto the original plan that God had when he created us. And it's a plan of prosperity and growth and beauty, and the sooner we get back on that track, the better. And the very first step each individual who sees this can take is acknowledge that the only God worthy of worship is the creator of everything, of the universe and all souls and everything within it. This God revealed himself to mankind after mankind was cut off from falling away, from disobeying God. and turned their hearts away from God completely. And God began a rescue with Abraham in a very hard, cruel, suffering world, and began to redeem mankind slowly, first by an individual, then by a tribe, then by a family, then by the tribes, then by the nations. And we see it today with the free world being mostly Christian, and the Jews within it also enjoy that freedom because they are also part of that same story. Uh, and from this outgrowth, eventually all of mankind can have access to this fundamental, quintessential truth that connects us to our very essence as sentient beings of light. I'm going to get to that in another video where I will talk specifically about the nature of souls, spirits, and our body, and each of them is kind of an individual trinity within each human. But the fuel for the soul comes from God. And when people die, the light that they see at the end of the tunnel, then being drawn towards, is also the light of God in heaven. I will touch on all those themes specifically with a dedicated video later. So the first commandment, worship only the Creator. Are you going to be willing to do that? Is it something that you're incapable of doing, or is it something that you're willing to consider doing? I think if you want to be on my side, if you want to be on the side of God, if you want to be on the same team, if you want to have unity inside the truth, because that's the only unity worth having, the first pillar of the Judeo-Christian faith is right here in front of us in that first commandment. And no matter if you're come from an atheist country, if you come from a Muslim country, if you come from any other kind of cultural, religious stream, uh, you have your constraints and what you're allowed to express, but nobody can control how you think. And inside your own thoughts, inside your own mind, in your own heart, you can say, you know what, I'm gonna give Alex a chance here, and I'm gonna turn my heart back to God and towards God, and I'm gonna acknowledge that, you know what, maybe if there is a creator, I should be honoring him, I should be respecting him, should be showing reverence and gratitude and thankfulness for this opportunity to exist, to be that beating heart, that thinking mind, that individual personality, that unique footprint, that unique expression of sentience inside the universe. So this is the first commandment. I hope this is helpful. I hope this is informative. Next, we will touch up on the other 11 commandments one by one. So I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Please like, comment, share. And if you want to ask me questions and you want me to make videos, you can subscribe to my channel on Patreon. And once you do that, I will be happy to create videos to address specific observations, questions that you might have, topics. So thank you again for viewing this video. I appreciate every view. I thank you for your time. And I hope to see you later. So stick around and good luck with everything. Cheers.